It's over 1,000 worlds. That has been like one of the major focal points for Bethesda around Starfield ever since all of the promotional material started coming out, I don't know, a couple few years back. And it's been something that we've repeatedly seen talked about over and over and over. And we've gotten greater explanations on what they mean by that. And I think it's very interesting. I've covered Starfield a little bit, um, mostly starting during Starfield Direct. I talked about it maybe 3 or 4 times before Starfield Direct, but then when Starfield Direct came out, and I got to watch Starfield Direct, I really was like, oh, I'm really glad that I kept this in my peripheral because this game looks pretty freaking amazing. And I haven't bought into any hype. It really kind of annoys me when you get people in the comments who say something like that because go back and watch my channel for the past like 4 years. I've barely mentioned Starfield ever until Starfield Direct. That was the game, that was the game showcase that made me sit up and go, oh, well, hello there. And then started to get stressed because Baldur's Gate 3 was coming out around the same time. And thank you, Larian Studios, for saving me from that dilemma by releasing Baldur's Gate 3 a month early. So in between all the Baldur's Gate 3 stuff I've been doing the last week or so since the community update 20, letting us know that it was time to start prepping for launch a month early. Starfield is still in the back of my mind, and I've had some more thoughts, and I've sat and looked at things a little bit more. And as we sort of ease our way towards the launch date of this game, I have more questions, and those of you who are experts on Starfield might be able to answer those for me. Meanwhile, by doing my own deep dive, hopefully people out there who are like me, who are just now getting into Starfield and learning more about it, can hopefully get educated along the way. So that's kind of what my video series is here for. So if you're a returning visitor, thank you so much for being here and supporting everything that I do with Chris and this channel and the homestead and everything else. And those of you who are new, hopefully you like the video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the bell icon. Support with memberships, super chats, all those things. We'll talk more about commercial stuff in the middle of the video, but in the meantime, let's dive into the Starfield Direct video that they showcased a couple few weeks ago, and we're going to go into their gameplay deep dive, and we're going to do our own sort of deep dive into a section of the video that I want to look at and kind of analyze a little bit more because I have more thoughts and I want to get your thoughts as well. All right, so there's a place down here, a timestamp in their video at 1:28 called Your Quest. This is the section we're going to go to. I'm going to click it, expand, and then we're going to pause throughout and talk about what they're talking about.
Starfield is our first new universe in over 25 years, but it's still a Bethesda RPG through and through, where you step into a new world and you get that feeling of unlimited possibilities. But this time, it's not just one world. It's over 1,000 worlds.
All right, I'm going to pause right here because obviously we know now from more interviews and so on and so forth that when they talk about 1,000 worlds, it's not going to be 1,000 worlds teeming with quests and life and all sorts of content, right? It's going to be, I don't know how many explorable planets in terms of quest lines and stories and missions, but when they talk about 1,000 planets, it's mostly the stuff that is procedurally generated using the system that they've cooked up in-house, which is an interesting system. We'll probably do a video about that system at some point because it kind of combines elements of procedural generation with handcrafted terrain building and sort of blends the two. It's an interesting way of doing it with the way they wrap the planets. But most of these planets are there for the purpose of harvesting resources and building outposts, not necessarily for doing storylines and quest missions. So that's an important distinction to make. I also think that they've harped a little too much from a personal perspective on the 25-year thing. I think that's mostly, I think this is a very personal game for Todd. If I had to make a guess based on all the interviews I've watched, again, I'm not intimately familiar with Bethesda and their personnel. Obviously, him being the face of the company for the past, I don't know, like feels like 10 years or so. Maybe it's longer. Again, I really don't know. But in the interviews and podcasts and stuff I've seen coming out around this game, it seems like he genuinely feels like this is his, you know, his passion project. It's the big finale. I think he even talked about he might not even be still around when the next Skyrim comes out, like the one beyond the one that's coming up, because of the generational time in between the games, which is an interesting thing to think about. But um, the 25 years thing, it sounds cool. I hope it can live up to that from a creator standpoint, as someone who creates things for a living on a smaller scale, I really hope that he can achieve the personal sense of gratification that he needs or wants out of this. And I think he will. You're always going to have people who criticize your work for stupid reasons, and then there's people who appreciate your work. And you know, it's really cool when you get those people who are passionate about your project to come on board and say, "This is really awesome. This is really amazing." And I'm hoping that that's the case. Everything I've seen so far looks really good, but of course, a lot of this is marketing speak. So understanding the Thousand Worlds thing and 25 years, it's our legacy product. It's important in the overall conversation of what Starfield is for him and for the company, but also marketing speak.
Because the choice of where to go, it's not ours, it's yours. And it wasn't until now that we had the technology to create it.
That to me is the very George Lucas way of looking at things, because if you've ever watched an interview with George Lucas, he'll always talk about how the technology wasn't there, the technology wasn't there, the technology wasn't there, and then now we have the technology. And so this is sort of like, I think specifically they're talking about where game engines have come, where asset creation has come, where rendering pipelines have come. In terms of all the technology, the procedural element, I think, is something that probably has a lot to do with this right here, with this comment, because the procedural generation didn't exist in a commercially viable format, I would argue, until the last 5 years or so. Because before that it was still too rudimentary, and now it's to the point where they could do the system that they talked about, which we briefly mentioned earlier, and use that to you know, I'm going to use the word rapidly, but I don't mean it instantaneously. But it allows them to more quickly, might be a better way of saying it, more quickly create lots and lots of planets at scale, which was something that previously would have been impossible if you were asking a team of people to handcraft each one of those planets and all the terrain and everything else. So, you know, technology is an interesting thing because we get huge jumps very quickly now, and the landscape can change dramatically in 3 to 5 years just based on the technology that's available to people. Which is also why any game that takes longer than 5 years to develop is shooting itself in the foot. And I'm pointing the finger at indie titles that take 10, 12, whatever years, even Star Citizen. Jesus. Like, you know, having a project that when they say 25 years, they don't mean that it took 25 years to make it. What they mean is 25 years in the making, and then finally getting the technology where we needed it to be within the last, however many years they've been working on this project, 5, 6 years. Um, but I think that it's it's a really cool thing to look at the way the technology advances, but also understand where the game is at because of the technology, and understanding that what they're accomplishing today is going to look like child's play in another 5 years. You
From the
gotta you
rocks at
gotta
your feet
publish.
to the mountains in the distance, to the people and creatures that live in these worlds. That isn't just a backdrop. That moon is actually there orbiting the planet. Yes, you can visit it too. We realistically simulate the galaxy around you. Our next generation lighting model uses real-time global illumination to light the world based on the type of star.
So I know some people have focused on the whole it's locked at 30 FPS on the console and the Series X. That's bullshit, man. Doesn't impact me whatsoever. I am always going to choose visual fidelity above frame rates because I don't really care. As long as I'm getting 25 to 30, I'm content. I don't play a lot of first person shooters. I don't need 150 frames per second to be satisfied. Um, So for me, this right here looks freaking amazing. So whatever they've done with the lighting and shaders and everything else, I think it looks great. I know some people have criticisms, but those people can get out of here. Everybody's allowed to have criticism. You're allowed to have an opinion. But I like to be entertained, so I try not to nitpick stuff too frequently.
Are and the
I'm
makeup
also
of the
easily
planet's
pleased.
atmosphere. We also have an all-new animation system. And of course, you can play it in third person
I like this distinction here.
and you can play it in first person.
So I'm really torn about this, guys, because I love both. I love both styles of gameplay. I really do. And I wonder if this is going to be a game where I switch between the two or if I end up picking one and going with it. Either one I would be fine with because this game has FPS elements, but it is not predominantly an FPS, which is why I'm not worried about the frame rate stuff. But over the person would be a more traditional way to play it if I wanted to treat it like an RPG. So I may do it third person the first time and then do first person later on, or I might do third person exploration mode and first person anytime I enter combat. I don't know. It remains to be seen. I need to play the game to get an idea of how I'm going to be working with the control system and the visuals. Um, but I'm excited about both. I like having options. I think that's a good thing.
We love exploration and rewarding it, but you
Good
do
deal.
explore differently in this game given its scale. That usually involves exploring an area you've landed in. You can collect resources, do a mission, and maybe even stumble upon something unexpected.
All of this sounds great. I like exploration games. Exploration is my favorite thing to do in all games. So I'm watching this gameplay, by the way. The 30 frames per second do not look bad. Like, I don't get the people who are like, it's not 150. This looks great to me. The jetpack looks absolutely amazing. By the way, that animation where it shoots up into the eaves of the building, I've seen that a few
all of
times.
the items allowing you to pick everything up, and you can view all that in your data menu. This is the hub for everything you're doing, from your skills to your ship, your missions, and your inventory.
It's your HUD stuff.
We love to pack a ton of detail in every object, from all of your weapons.
By the way, I think the weapons have looked really good. There's a different, I think it's later on in this presentation. They had a section where they talk about the customization of. It's in the outpost section when we're talking about outposts, and towards the end they talk about that's where you do all of your modifications to your weapons and stuff. And some of the weapons look amazing.
To spacesuits.
I missed this during the actual I don't remember this part. Like I think I might have skimmed over this part, the fact that you can customize your spacesuit. That's really cool.
To food. We just obsess over the details, and food. We obsess over food. When you're done exploring, you can walk back or fast travel to your ship. We have companions and crew.
Skyrim in space. It's awesome.
I left Vasco here back at my ship.
Welcome back, Captain Howard.
And he can even say your name. Let's head out.
By the way, that's really cool. So you'll be able to program in your name to your droid, and so they'll greet you when you come back. These are the little things that make RPGs super rewarding. So like I said, Skyrim in space, I'm on board for all of that. And I get a ship, and I don't care. I do not care if I get a canned animation for ascent and descent every time I come into a planet. I don't care. This is not being billed as a flight sim in the same way that, say, Squadron 42 is, or Star Citizen, So I might make fun of those games, but I'm a backer of that project, and I'm excited for that project, and I've enjoyed that project as I've played it throughout its early access. But I am going to poke fun at it because of how long it's taken. But that's the thing. For me, this is fine because I'm treating this game like an RPG that just has some space elements. So If you've ever watched me play Star Wars Jedi Republic, I nerd out every single time I land on a planet and take off from a planet because they included animations. So I get to see my ship taking off and landing every time I come into a planet, and I freaking love it. So this to me, I have no problems with this system whatsoever. And I've heard it's not the same thing. I want to be able to take off and fly into space and go through the atmosphere and then come back down wherever I want. I hear that. I hear that. So I'm okay with this. I will say though that those players are going to find it extremely rewarding when Star Wars Outlaws comes out because that game is fully open world and you can fly up through the atmosphere and go into space and fly back through the atmosphere down to another planet. It looks good. It's gonna be fun.
Our mission was to convey the wonder and majesty of space exploration, to evoke the romance of the golden age of early spaceflight. And we've been referring to this approach as NASA Punk. This means a design language
That concept art right there, like I would be happy if that was the only ship I got. Like to me, that ship looks really, really, really cool. Like I just like the look of that.
where the tech is advanced, yet still looks
I love the look of that. Like that's more of a freighter, but it still looks good. That even gives me like vibes from like the Alien films.
grounded and relatable.
For us, it's that contrast. That's where the visual interest is. Obviously, the NASA, which is the rigid, hard function over style,
I wish I could draw. I'm really jealous of people who could draw.
and then Punk, which is all about style.
You can see that visual style coming through in your
That cockpit looks amazing.
ship. Your ship is your home for you and your crew. And like many of the spaces in our game, it has a slightly retro and analog touch. A bit of lo-fi rather than sci-fi.
It
where
looks
everything
really
is well
good.
used, worn, and lived in.
Alrighty. What's the plan, Captain?
Oh, it's time for a mission.
This is your star map. It starts with the planet you're currently on.
Okay.
You can see all of its info and resources.
So, gravity, temperature, atmosphere, magnetosphere, fauna, flora, water. So, all the stuff that you might need to know if you're going to go down there and go harvesting. And also, I guess if you're going to do a planet analysis, know whether or not it's worth building an outpost there, depending on what your unique needs are. I see missions. I'm looking at the menu on the bottom right. Missions, show me, set landing target, back to system, hold to exit.
You can choose a landing spot
Show resources,
or fast
LB.
travel to known locations. Backing out further, you can view all the planets in the system. Obviously, the game is big, and it's here you can see planets that have key locations, missions, or life on them, versus the many planets that are barren but resource heavy. Zoom out even further to see all the systems in this part of the galaxy. Here
So, I don't know how many of you watching this video are long-term fans. If you watched me play, it's been almost 3 years ago now, probably, when Assassin's Creed Valhalla came out, and I played that game. I live streamed quite a few sessions. Um, that game took me 6 months to beat because it was just so damn big, and I played it from a completionist standpoint. And so I wanted to clear everything and do all the activities. And that game was massive. I played Odyssey through a couple of times and absolutely freaking loved it. I would do a third happily. Valhalla, I've been a little terrified to ever touch again, and it's definitely worth doing a second playthrough. It's such a good game. I played it on the PS4, and I really wish I could play it on the PS5. Or excuse me, on the Xbox Series X. I don't have a PS5. I wish I could play it on my Series X, and maybe I will at some point. It is a massive game, and it's really, really good, and I like to explore everything. So I fully anticipate that Starfield is going to take me. It's going to be an easy 6 months for me. I feel the same way about Baldur's Gate 3. Like, I think my next year, honestly, like probably an easy 75% of my content for the foreseeable future is going to be Baldur's Gate 3 and Starfield. And the only thing that's going to interrupt that next year is going to be when Avowed comes out and when Star Wars Outlaws comes out. Those two in particular, because I will go nuts on those. But we know, Star Wars Outlaws is, you know, we don't know the timeline on either one of those, so I'll probably lose myself in those for sure. But we'll sort that out when we get to it. I'm rambling about other stuff, guys. Let's get back to the video. I'm already like 20 minutes in.
You can plot a course to ones that are light years away. This uses your ship's grav drive to fold space and jump to these systems. And you will need to upgrade your ship and skills if you want to jump to the most distant ones.
That's very interesting. So you'll be locked to short distance jumps until you make upgrades to your ship. So that's going to mean resource farming, which I'm a big fan of. I love harvesting.
But for now, we'll plot a course to the Alpha Centauri system where we can find the city of New Atlantis.
This looks amazing. That looks amazing. All of this looks amazing to me.
UC space. Maintain your current course while we scan your ship's cargo. Scan complete. You are cleared for landing at New Atlantis.
I have nothing to say. This all looks amazing
As
to
soon as you
me.
land in a city like New Atlantis, your eyes are guided upwards to just these boundless, vast buildings.
It's the biggest city we've ever made, not just in size, but also in the amount of custom art, crowds, and quests.
So the main focus when we're designing a city is obviously what supports the story.
By the way, I'm gonna lose. I will lose a lot of time in the city because I will be exploring every nook and cranny because I want all the quests, every quest available. Please send me to every nook and cranny corner of the galaxy. I am ready for it.
Try and tell as many small stories as possible.
This is a colony war memorial.
It's a few moments of gameplay that make the space feel like it's full of real characters that are going about their day-to-day lives.
It's paralyzing if you really stop and think about it.
Buddy, it's coffee.
It's also where
coffee.
your adventure with Constellation begins.
And this is the, the first big story faction that you meet.
Welcome to Constellation. We have a lot to talk about.
By the time you meet them, Constellation is sort of seen as this mythical group. Most people don't even know they exist anymore. They're the last true explorers in the galaxy, and they're trying to find the answers to some of humanity's biggest questions.
So it's exactly like the Starfinder and the Pathfinder. I'm just saying it's a common theme, but this is really cool. Like, I love that idea of being part of that elite group of, like, Mass Effect even did this with the why am I blanking on it? With Andromeda. The path, I think it was called Pathfinder, wasn't it? Yeah, it was called Pathfinder in Mass Effect as well. I was joking about Starfinder and Pathfinder from Paizo, right? But it also was the Pathfinder in Mass Effect. Anyway, this idea of a group of people who explore the crazy stuff in the galaxy. Cool stuff. I can't wait for the story of this game, and I really hope that this spawns. I'm 43, and there've been 5. Commercial time, everyone. Huge shout out to the Guild Champions, who are our highest tiered membership here on YouTube. We've got Bubbleonia, Ancient Entity, Crazy's Relative, Remy D. Thanks so much for your support here on the channel. And of course, to all of our members who help keep me full time here on YouTube. Thanks so much for your support, for being here, for checking in. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell icon. Super chat any live streams or premieres you see. Super thanks any video uploads you see. Don't forget YouTube Shorts in that category as well. And hopefully, we'll see you in the next live stream. Don't forget the Discord. Links are down below. Let's get back to the video. Of the, well, I guess 6 if you count the MMO, but the Elder Scrolls games, right? Like, or have there been more? I didn't play a lot of the early ones, but like 3, like was it Morrowind, Oblivion, Skyrim, those have all been great games. And I'm just thinking back to, that's been over the course of 20-ish years. So if I'm 43 now and this becomes the start of a new franchise, this is going to be the next, until I'm old, and decrepit and, keeling over. I'll be happy to be playing a video game at the end. That's going to be the way to go.
The artifacts are so different.
So expansions is what I was talking about. I'm looking forward to the bigger story.
Out and spoke to you.
By the way, that's the story from Mass Effect, and I've joked about that every time. It's like in Mass Effect, when you touch the artifact, you get flashes of what happened, and then that becomes a vision that becomes clearer as you complete the game. It's a common theme.
If you could place it on the table here.
Oh my god. Look at how it's coming together. That means there's a set built by an intelligence outside the settled systems.
Spoiler alert!
An eclectic cast of characters. You've got Sarah Morgan, the ex-soldier and adventurer, now Constellation's leader. Mateo,
the dad who's the Pathfinder in Mass Effect and Andromeda.
Something else out there. Noelle, the gifted scientist and Sarah Morgan's protege.
Nice.
And Walter, a very successful businessman in the settled systems and Constellation's financier.
Anything goes as long as you have the money.
I think that's really cool if you think about that, because every explorer in the traditional world, thinking back to when exploration was a big thing, like, you know, the guys who took ships and went across and discovered new continents, right? They were usually backed by a wealthy someone, whether it was the king or queen of their country or, you know, a trading company or something. Like, it takes money to do exploration. So I love the fact that they have a financier for Constellation. That sounds really cool and legit.
So Vlad, the ex-pirate, Sam Coe, the former space cowboy, and Barrett.
You know what I hate about these pirates? Completely resistant to my otherwise irresistible charm.
The journey you take with Constellation is just the first of many you'll embark on. The Settled Systems is home to all kinds of different stories, people, and adventures for you to uncover.
The United Colonies is where you'll find New Atlantis, the first major human settlement in space. The people who live here value law, discipline, and the legacy of humanity. They consider themselves the true children of Earth.
You ever think of joining up with the Vanguard? Help the United Colonies, even get your UC citizenship?
New Atlantis.
That sounds really cool. I was thinking about the Babylon 5 universe and the Mars colonies, but then I was also thinking about the Expanse universe and everything they did with the different. Man, I love science fiction. Like, science fiction is awesome.
Isn't the only city within the United Colonies. The city of Cydonia on Mars to this day serves as the largest mining facility for the United Colonies. Beyond the United Colonies' reach, you might find yourself in a much more wild and independent coalition of star systems. This is Freestar Collective Space.
Factions. Like, that shot right there just reminds me of a Fallout game. Like, the Hitchin' Post. Like, this just reminds me of Fallout right here. Like, this image, this shot. There's nothing wrong with that, by the way. I'm down for it. Like, I like Bethesda games, guys. You know, so many people, oh, it's going to be a buggy mess when it comes out. Maybe. Every game's buggy when it comes out. I don't let it bother me. I just want to go have fun. I still had great fun with Cyberpunk 2077. That was a Anthem also. Those two were really bad launches. I still had great fun with those games. Can't wait for this game.
The capital of the Freestar Collective is Aquila City.
Everything looks really good here in distinct art styles.
A ranger relies on judgment and intuition to do what's best for the people.
Neon started out as a fishing platform, but is now known throughout the Settled Systems as a pleasure city, where almost anything goes.
If you've got morality issues, this definitely
I
isn't
don't,
the job
so I'll be going and spending a lot of time here. My character's gonna be a smuggler. You damn right I'm gonna be here.
Brightest of today for our future tomorrow.
Everyone has been chewed up and ground up by Neon. Try not to get yourself killed, all right?
Outside the bounds of civilized space, there are still plenty of unclaimed systems to explore, but these areas are also home to the most hostile factions in the galaxy.
The great serpent hungers. All heathens shall be made dust in time.
A new face. Is this the face of a brave runner here to challenge the Red Mile?
They think
The galaxy is theirs. They are wrong. It belongs to the Crimson Fleet. It always has.
In Starfield, we're pushing our cities and settlements further than we ever have
That shot right there looks amazing.
before. It's all there.
I like the burn marks
waiting
on the
for
ship
you.
and everything.
A slice of humanity's future.
So, ready to get out there?
I am ready to get out there. So that's a really good stopping point for the video because we're like 30 minutes in already. I want to get back to that screenshot real quick if I can. Come back to me. That's a cool shot. I can dig it. So, 30 minutes of listening to me ramble. I just wanted to talk about that quest portion of the Starfield Direct video because, I've had some more time to think about it, and I think some of what they're saying is really cool, and I think that this is going to be a really good game. I don't really see anything that I'm not going to enjoy, to be honest with you. The only thing that could possibly detract will be if there are bugs at launch, but I anticipate there will be. I also anticipate that we'll be patching those things as quickly as possible. It's really difficult. I don't work at scale like these guys, but doing, indie game dev for the last 10 years, I understand the complexities of what they're building here, and it's impossible. It's impossible when you're talking about the diversity of specifications that PC players have across all of the thousands of permutations of chipsets and drivers and hardware and software and power supplies and fan makeups and all these different things and then you look at like a console like the PS5 or the Xbox Series X where all they have to do is one version to satisfy all the machines, right? I don't anticipate there being any issues on the Xbox Series X. There might be, but I don't anticipate there being any. PC, it remains to be seen. Big companies have been having bad PC ports lately. Let's keep our fingers crossed that that's not the case here. In any case, I'm really looking forward to Starfield. I will be now that this is coming out, I have a month of Baldur's Gate 3 now. I think my current schedule is I'm probably going to be doing around two videos for Starfield per week leading up to the launch of the game. I might do more than that, but at least two a week. And then once we get closer, like within a couple of weeks of launch, I'll start to ramp that up and kind of divide my time between Baldur's Gate 3 and Starfield. So yeah, and then once it starts, we'll go from there. But in the meantime, if that all sounds good to you, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon so you never miss an update. Check out all the other stuff we do here on the channel, all the playlists. Just Discord links are down below if you want to join us over in Discord. Of course, you can always support with a membership, super thanks, all those good things. Till next time, everybody, stay safe. Happy gaming.